Hey, family. Welcome back to another chapter of Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. If you're new here, I'm not a coach, I'm not a guru, but I am your manifesting mentor, and I'm a woman who walks the walk and who shares what works. Listen, we're officially diving into chapter 11, which is titled Space Time and Time Space. I think we touched on this in an earlier chapter, but in this part, Dr. Joe begins to explain the fundamental difference between how we normally experience reality in the 3D through our bodies, environment, and linear time, and what it means to access a different realm of possibility through the quantum field. In space time, we're taught to believe that we're separate from our desires, our healing, our future. We are someone with something, somewhere, trying to make something happen in some time. And that framework trains our brains and bodies to operate in what we now know is survival mode, fight or flight, stress, scarcity, constantly reacting to what we see. But when we live like this for too long, we begin to biologically memorize stress, training our nervous system to expect danger even when it's not really there. That's what Dr. Joe unpacks in this section, which is stress and the consequences of living in a perpetual state of survival. So, in today's reading, we'll cover the introduction to chapter 11, followed by this section. So, let's get into it. Space time and time space. We live in a three-dimensional universe, meaning one, where everything that exists is made up of people, objects, places, and time. For the most part, it is the dimension of particles and matter. Through our senses, we experience these things as form, structure, mass, and density. If I place an ice cube, your cell phone, or an apple pie in front of you, for example, you could not experience any of these objects without your senses. It's your senses that give rise to your experience of physical reality. While the ice cube, cell phone, and apple pie all have height, width, and depth, they only exist to you because you can see, hear, taste, smell, and feel them. If you lost your five senses or they were simultaneously eliminated, you would be incapable of experiencing these physical objects because you would have no awareness of them. They would literally not exist to you because in this three-dimensional reality, you can't experience them without your senses. Or can you? According to astrophysicists, in this realm of three dimensions, the known universe, let's call it space-time reality. So 3D is space-time reality. There's an infinite amount of space. Take a moment to ponder that concept. From the small perch where we sit staring out into the universe, when we look up at the sky at night, we only see a sliver of the universe. It appears to us as infinite, and yet infinite is even bigger than that. In other words, in the realm of space time, space is eternal. It has no end and goes on forever. But what about time? The way you and I typically experience time is by moving our bodies through space. For example, it might take you 5 minutes to set this book down, walk to the kitchen, pour a glass of water, and return. This occurs because a thought that originated in your mind created a vision of what you were going to do in the kitchen. You acted on that thought, and consequently, you experienced time by moving from one point to another through space. That's what space time is. Before you walked into the kitchen, as you were sitting in your chair, when you became conscious of the kitchen in relation to where you were sitting, you experienced a separation of 2 points of consciousness where you sat and the kitchen. To close the gap between those 2 points of consciousness, you moved your body through space, and that took time. It makes sense then that the greater the space or distance between 2 points, the greater the time it takes to get from one point to another. Conversely, the faster the speed at which you travel between these 2 points, the shorter amount of time it takes. This measurement of the time it takes an object to move through space is the foundation of Newtonian physics or classical mechanics. In the Newtonian world, if you know certain properties about an object, such as its force, acceleration, direction, speed, and distance it will travel, we can make time based predictions. Therefore, Newtonian physics is based on the knowns and predictable outcomes. We can say then that when there's a separation between 2 points of consciousness, as you move from one point of consciousness to another point of consciousness, you are collapsing space. As a result of collapsing space, you experience time. Take a look at figure 11.1 to further understand the relationship between space and time in our three-dimensional world. Here's another example. If I'm writing this book and I want to finish this chapter, it's going to take time. I may not have to move my body very much through space, but I still experience time. Why? Because where I presently am in the process of writing this chapter represents one point in consciousness, and finishing the chapter represents another point. The completion of this chapter represents a future moment separate from the present moment. The space between the closing of the gap between these 2 points in consciousness is the experience of time. If you look at figure 11.1 again, it will help you gain a better understanding about time. To achieve my desired goal of arriving at the end of the chapter, I repeatedly have to do something. This requires me to use my senses to interact with and move through my environment with a coordinated set of behaviors. And again, this takes time. If I cease writing and do something else, such as watch a movie, it's going to take more time for me to reach my intended result. Therefore, to achieve my goal of completing this chapter, I must consistently align my actions to match my intentions. In this material world of three dimensions, because we use our senses to navigate space, we place most of our attention on physical things such as people, objects, and places. They all are made up of matter and they are localized, meaning they occupy a position in space and time. These all represent points of consciousness from which we experience separation. For instance, when you observe your best friend sitting across the table from you, or look at your car parked in the driveway, you notice the space between you and your friend or the car. As a result, you feel separate from them. You are here and your friend or the car is there. In addition, if you have dreams and goals, then where you are in the present moment and where your dreams exist as a reality in your future also creates the experience of separation. It's safe to say then that number one, in order for us to navigate this three-dimensional reality, we need our senses. Number two, the more we use our senses to define reality, the more we experience separation. Number three, because most of this three-dimensional reality is sensory based, space and time create the experience of separation from everyone, everything, every place, and everybody in every time. Number four, all things material occupy one position in space and time. That's called locality in physics. In this chapter, we're going to explore and contrast two models of reality, space time and time space. Space time is the physical Newtonian world based on knowns, predictable outcomes, matter, and the three dimensional universe in which we live, which is made up of infinite space. Time space is the non physical quantum world and inverse reality based on unknowns, endless possibilities, energy, and the multidimensional multiverse where we also live, which consists of infinite time. I'm going to challenge your understanding and perception of the nature of reality because if you're going to experience the mystery of self as a dimensional being, you're going to need a roadmap to get there. And now we're going to start the section titled Stress and the Consequences of Living in a Perpetual State of Survival. Because we use our senses to observe and determine physical reality, we identify as a body living in space and time, yet separate from everything in our environment. Over time, this interaction creates the experience of our identity. Throughout our lives, via the different interactions we have at certain times and places with people, things, and objects, our identity evolves into a personality. The quality of these interactions with our external environment creates lasting memories, and these memories shape who we become. We call this process experience, and it is life's experiences that shape who we are. And as you know, the majority of people's personality is based on past experiences. As you learned in chapter 8, to our brains, the material objects, things, people, and places that we perceive daily occur to us as patterns, and the recognition of these patterns is called memory. If the self is created from memories of past experiences, then memories are based on knowns. Therefore, most of our three-dimensional world is based on knowns. This is where most of us focus our attention. When you align everything material in your external world with the memories of your past experiences, you recognize them as familiar. You're matching a physical reality with a set of neurological networks in your brain. This is called pattern recognition, and it's the process whereby most people perceive reality through a lens of the past. We could say then that we are materialists, not only living in this dimension, but also enslaved to but also enslaved to and limited by it, because we've defined ourselves as a body living in an environment at certain times, and our focus is more on matter and less on energy. From a quantum perspective, we're keeping our attention on the physical particle, matter, instead of the immaterial wave of possibilities, energy. This is how we become immersed in this three-dimensional reality. When stress is thrown into the equation, our body begins to draw from the invisible electromagnetic field of energy around us to produce chemistry. The greater the frequency, intensity, and duration of the stress, the more energy our body consumes. The very nature of these chemicals endorses our senses, causing us to pay attention to matter and knowns. As this vital field of energy around our body shrinks, we feel more like matter and less like energy. In fact, when our frequency slows down, our bodies become more dense as we run out of energy. As we've discussed, this is fine for short term when danger, crisis, or a predator is lurking around the corner. In fact, the fight or flight response has been a cornerstone of our evolution. In this state, stress chemicals heighten our senses, narrowing our focus to whatever matter in our environment represents potential danger. When this happens, our neocortex, the part of our brain involved in sensory perception, motor commands, spatial reasoning, and language, fires and becomes aroused. For survival purposes, this narrows our focus on our body and the external threat, causing us to become preoccupied by the time between the moment of the perceived threat and the moment we reach physical safety, both of which are points of consciousness. The more we experience stress, the more we feel separation. As you read in chapter 2, the long term effect of living in survival mode is that we begin to thrive on and become addicted to the stress chemicals. The more addicted we are to them, the more we believe that we are our bodies that are local. I'm sorry. The more addicted we are to them, the more we believe we are our bodies that are local. That is, that are living in a particular place in space and occupying a particular position in linear time. The result is manic, frantic state where we continuously shift our attention from one person to one problem to one thing to one place in our environment. The evolutionary trait that once protected us now works against us, and we live on constant high alert, obsessing about time. Because we view our external environment as unsafe, all of our attention is on our environment. As our outer world now appears more real than our inner world, we are addicted to someone or something in our external environment. And the longer we live in this state, the more our brain moves into high beta brain waves. And as you know by now, prolonged high beta brain waves cause us to feel pain, anxiety, worry, fear, anger, frustration, judgment, impatience, aggression, and competition. As a result, our brain waves become incoherent, and so do we. When the emotions of survival have a hold on us, we need the conditions of our external world, which are our problems with different people, financial hardships, fear of terrorism, disdain for our jobs, to reaffirm our addiction to these emotions. These emotional addictions cause us to become preoccupied by whatever we think might be causing the upset in our environment, whether it be someone or something. And as a result, the survival gene switches on. Now we're living in a self fulfilling prophecy. If you understand that where you have placed your attention is where you place your energy, you know that the stronger the emotional reaction associated with the cause, the more you will consistently place all of your attention on a person, thing, or problem in your external world. When you do this, you are giving quite a bit of your power away to someone or something. Now, all your attention and energy is anchored in this three-dimensional realm of material, and your emotional state is causing you to continuously reaffirm your present reality. You can become emotionally attached to the reality that you really want to change. This mismanagement of your energy keeps you enslaved to the world of the knowns, trying to predict the future based on your past. What's more, when you're in the survival state, the unknown or the unpredictable is a scary place. So, for you to truly make changes in your life, you would have to step into the unknown. And if you don't, nothing ever really changes. And I think we're going to stop that part there. So, if you're feeling this series so far, I invite you to follow along. I'm reading Becoming Supernatural chapter by chapter, breaking it down in real time. The full playlist is linked on my YouTube and in my TikTok bio. Come catch up anytime and let this work meet you where you are. We're about to jump into part 2 of chapter 11. I'll see you in the next video.